Welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to talk about Chromebooks and malicious software. Let's get started. Okay, so on the menu is viruses. Well, more like malicious software because technically Chromebooks don't really get viruses, but they certainly can still get malicious software which can do things that you don't want it to do. Some of these things include collecting your data. More than likely, that's just what you're searching so that they can sell that off to somebody and they can advertise just exactly what you need or want, right? And then other things is using your hardware, your computer hardware to do tasks such as, well, maybe crypto mining, which the other person gets all the cryptocurrency and you don't. So, yeah, it's just stuff you just don't want, right? So some of the signs that you have a problem, well, one of the most common is what's called a browser hijacker. And it will constantly redirect you from the default search engine to something else. And what it's doing is it's simply sitting in between. It has to redirect you, so it sits in between, and as you search that other browser, it will collect data. The most common browser search, whatever, web, I don't know, that is used is search.yahoo.com. And so it just looks like this, something like this, search.yahoo.com. It'll constantly redirect you to this, or it'll just in the URL bar, it'll say search Yahoo. This is a good indicator that you've got a problem. If your Chromebook is really sluggish, this is also could possibly be an indication that your hardware, your laptop, is being used for something else, such as crypto mining. The other thing that it could or could not be a sign are just weird extensions that have been added to your Chromebook. And they typically appear in this URL section up here. I guess next to this little icon is basically where you'll see them. And lastly, if you try to go to your settings, which is accessed through the upper right hand corner, and then let's see, where is that thing? There it is. Settings, you try to go there and it does not let you go there because of some sort of helper object, then yeah, you got a problem. Okay, so what can we do about these problems we've got? Well, before we get into actually fixing your device, we have to get familiar with Google Sync. So Google Sync is really, really nice. It allows you to set up, let's say, your Chromebook just the way you want it, with all your apps, your extensions that you want, your settings. And then when you log on to another computer, let's say you log on to a Windows computer, type in your username, it asks you, do you want to sync? And you click sync. All of those settings that you've made are then copied and put over onto this other machine. Now, this is really handy. It saves you some time configuring. However, it can also be a problem if, let's say, one of the extensions is malicious and it has now synced to all of the other devices that you have ever signed onto. So we need to get into settings to disable Google Sync before we do anything. Of course, this won't apply if you've got a helper object. And to be quite honest, I don't know how to help you just yet. I haven't really dug into that subject, but I don't know. So for now, we're able to access our settings, and we need to turn off sync. The fastest way to get there is by typing SYN into your search bar of your settings, and that will pull up sync. And in here, you would want to turn sync basically off, which involves first turning off sync everything and then hitting each of these different icons. I think you could probably just stick to turning off apps and extensions. Let me see. yeah, you probably want to do settings and things like that too. Just to be on the safe side, disable everything. With everything, with all the syncs turned off, we can now try to tackle that problem. Okay, so with a Google Chrome browser open, and that can be done by clicking this icon down here, we want to navigate to settings. And of course, you were just there, so you might not need to do these steps. But to get to settings, not settings, but we need to get to extensions. To get to extensions, you hit the hamburger in the upper right-hand corner, and then you hover over more tools and then onto extensions. In here, you will see all of your extensions, and oftentimes you will see something that just looks a little bit strange. Maybe it's something that reads PDFs, or it clearly says helps you browse for something or whatever. I would go ahead and remove. You remove them by clicking the remove button. Anything that you're not familiar with. This should solve 90% of your problems. Now, if, for instance, your homepage still defaults to some strange web page, you can change that as well by going to the hamburger in the upper right-hand corner and then clicking Settings. And then in the home section of your settings, you want to scroll down to the very bottom, and you will see this section, the Search and Assistant section and On Startup section. In the Search and Assistant section, you can select your default search engine. So you might want to go ahead and set that back to Google if it isn't. And let's see. And then on Startup, this is where you could, it might have defined some various pages to open up automatically. So you can revert those back to default. All right, now the last thing that I would suggest you do is download Malwarebytes from the Google Store. This is a free software which does an excellent job of searching for malicious software. On a Chromebook, you can find it by clicking in the lower left-hand corner. And then somewhere in here, let me see if I get this right here. There we go. Oops. Somewhere in here, you will see that there is a web store. And mine is right there. It's shown in the bottom. But if you don't see it there, you can just click that arrow, I guess, and it'll show you many more of your apps. And in the web store, you want to search for Malwarebytes, just as shown right there. And you should see some sort of application like this. From what I understand, it is a free app. Now, with this, you are fairly safe, but of course, you don't want to be irresponsible. So let's talk about how can you prevent malware, or I should say malicious software, from getting onto your Chromebook in the first place. So the browsing on your Google Chrome is fairly safe. You're not just going to get applications or malicious software onto your computer by simply browsing. It typically happens by downloading either an extension or a application. Now, if you don't have Google Play accessibility on your Chromebook, you don't have to worry about apps. However, really, the idea covers either an extension or an application. So the way that those browser hijackers and things like that get onto your computer is typically by what's called bundling. Now, bundling is when somebody makes some software that's semi-useful. Maybe it helps you track the ticket prices of airlines or whatnot. And they say, hey, download my app. And you go ahead and click download. In there, in the download process, there's typically, you'll more than likely see this step where it says, do you want to install a custom, advanced, or do you want to go with just the defaults, recommended? And so when you click recommended, it's they've bundled software with that free application or extension. And that bundled software is the malicious stuff. Well, I guess it's more like it just doesn't help you at all and can be intentionally malicious too. So if you just have to have that airline ticket tracker, price tracker application, then pay attention, and this applies to any application. Be sure to click on that advanced section. It's not that advanced. It'll just give you a list of bundled applications or extensions that you can hit that little checkbox and say, nope, I don't want malware. I don't want malware. Whatever. It's not going to be called that. But that is one of the main methods of getting it onto your computer. Oh, and I totally forgot. Now that you have fixed your Chromebook, you now need to go track down all those other devices that you have signed on to, and you need to turn off syncing for all those devices and try to remedy them as well, so that when you turn syncing back on, all of your devices, you won't be syncing off of a broken virus-infected device, but you'll have clean devices which then sync back up, and hopefully you don't have any more trouble. Real quick, just so in case you needed to know this, to get to your sync again, you hit your settings and then you type SYNC, and as you can see right about there, it says sync, and you go in there and you change, you flip it all back on. So that's really all I've got for you today. I hope that you do not have to have struggle with viruses, but if you do, I really hope it helps. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you next week.